Hey there everyone, Ervin here again, bringing you a breakdown on the RS-422 Railgun. Railgun is best gun cause there's no gun like Railgun. That's what we used to say in my community anyway. Having just received a buff to its penetration levels at all charge levels, everyone who remembers how dominant this weapon used to be in the metagame is asking the all-important question right now. Is it back? Well, I'm going to be taking a look at the weapon's technical specifications, target effectiveness, and damage breakpoints to give you that answer. As is the case with all of my breakdowns, all thoughts and opinions on the weapons are derived entirely from Difficulty 9 Helldive, giving you the most accurate information on how these pieces of gear hold up in the game's highest difficulty. So, the railgun is a weapon designed to fire not utilizing chemical propellants like an ordinary firearm, but with the power of electromagnetism. Railguns charge up their, rails from an internal power supply. This current feeds into what is effectively the bullet. To make this simple, it then loops, entering the positively charged rail, goes across the armature that is attached to our bullet, then through the negative rail back to the power supply. This current creates a magnetic field within the weapon, which circulates around each rail, building up force until it erupts out of the barrel, flinging the projectile at our target. Basically, science stuff. Anyway, our railgun in the game, unlike our real life ones, have relatively low muzzle velocity for some reason compared to what you would expect, meaning you need to lead shots, especially against the gunships, who now strafe even quicker than before thanks to their buff. Not sure why that happened. This weapon is unlocked pretty late in progression as of the time of recording, requiring a Helldiver to be level 20 before being able to purchase it. Thankfully, by this time, you'll certainly have the requisition slips, however, so this will not be an issue. The sight on this thing is a crime against democracy with how ugly it is. You are greeted upon aiming down the sights by a disgustingly large green dot that completely obstructs the target. On the bright side, we have a charge meter that at least helps us keep track of this weapon's all important mechanic. As this is a railgun, it charges up force in one of the two modes, safe or unsafe mode. You can access the menu to change this by holding down your reload key, which I suggest you do if you want to get the most out of the weapon. We have 3 stages to this charge up. The weapon deals the same damage on each charge, but the penetration level and structural damage, which we'll get into later, increase. This fundamental charging mechanic is important to familiarize yourself with, as the level of charge required to take down your intended target is a massive factor in its overall effectiveness. But be warned, it's called unsafe for a reason, as charging the railgun up to its maximum potential will cause the weapon to explode in your hands, along with, your hands and potentially the rest of you and any nearby teammates. So make sure to keep track of that charge level and don't ride the lightning too hard. The railgun is a single loader, only able to fire a single projectile at a time per reload. Having to reload and charge the weapon each and every time you fire is pretty cumbersome, and best done from the safety of cover, as these drawbacks are relatively eliminated while only peeking out long enough to fire. Consequently, though, keep in mind our DPS is quite low because of this. Speaking of damage per second, let's talk about the damage. The railgun deals 600 damage per shot, a staggeringly high amount compared to anything besides anti-tank rockets and the queso beam. So, raw power is definitely there with this weapon, at least you would think, and kinda. You see, they nerfed the structural damage dealt by the weapon when they gutted it back in the first month. This is the damage functionally used for the purpose of damaging what the game considers hard armored targets. If this sounds confusing, then it should. But basically, the railgun deals 60 damage to hard armor on safe charge, 90 damage when charged to 80%, and only 120 damage when charged to 90%. Not a lot of reward for all that effort, and this will be unfortunately reflected in the breakpoints later. The railgun is thankfully at least quite responsive ergonomics wise and snappy to reload, despite its other usability issues, such as the potentially lengthy charge up, so we'll call it a draw as far as the quality of life using this one. The weapon is not quiet by any means, but it's not as loud as cracking off an anti-material rifle either. You can expect enemies to recognize your presence and go hostile when firing within 50 meters of them. This can vary as always, but it should give you a rough idea of what you can expect, which is typically not to fire this weapon without a response in kind. Stagger wise, the railgun has taken a significant nerf to its stagger for some reason, leaving it at just a flinching level for most enemies. For context, flinching is kind of bad, as it really doesn't slow the enemy down very much, and they can still return fire during the animation, but the flinch displaces their hitboxes, making it more difficult to fire on them repeatedly. This at least is not a problem for the railgun, but the reason it's not a problem is because we will be too busy reloading and recharging to care about this displacement, so let's just call it a draw. Now let's talk about ammo. We get a total of 21 shots for the railgun on drop, and that's about it. You can run through your supply extremely quickly as a result, especially with how ugly some of our damage breakpoints end up looking by the end of this. So you'll need to be regularly picking up ammo crates and resupplies if you want to make regular use of this weapon against medium targets, as a field crate will only return 5 projectiles to you, which is not great, or 10 shots from a resupply without the packaging ship upgrade, meaning our ammo economy is looking overall pretty bad, unfortunately. Damage fall off wise, there seems to be next to none, so at least we got that going for us. To finish off the technical breakdown, let's go over the armor penetration, which is a bit of a tricky subject with the railgun. Basically, with the buff applied to it, you're looking at the exact same penetration scales we had on launch, as you have class 4 penetration when on safe charge, class 5 penetration when charged up to 80%, and class 6 penetration when charged up to 90%. Meaning, while we can penetrate and damage every enemy in the game with the railgun, we will be getting gatekept on our effectiveness extremely hard against anything with hard armor due to our structure damage being so ridiculously low. The tank class enemies will die eventually, or you'll run out of ammo trying. Honestly, barely putting it above a class 4 weapon's target effectiveness at the end of the day, such as the laser or the autocannon. Alright, so the stage is set for our damage breakpoints. What exactly do we get out of putting up with all these constraints and usability issues and ammo economy besides an open backpack slot, you might ask? Well, unfortunately, not as much as you'd probably like. Let's talk about the automatons. Let's get all the good news out of the way, as I think we could really use some to carry us forward through this. Light bots are taken down in one shot due to the raw 600 damage of the railgun, leaving them effectively vaporized. The penetration of the railgun also carries our projectile through these enemies, piercing onto the next behind it with ease should the opportunity arise. Although the railgun easily defeats this basic bot, this is a terrible way to use those limited shots that we have. Devastators are our highlight. A safe mode charge is enough to take any form of Devastator out through just a leg shot or headshot. Or, in the case of the heavy Devastators, a backpack shot even. Meaning, when taking on hordes of these enemies, the railgun performs exceptionally well, able to peek from cover even on just safe mode, sweep the leg, reload, and do it again, making this an extremely comfortable matchup in every regard. Stepping your charge up to an unsafe 80% will also allow you to take them out with a body shot through their medium armor. Berserkers are relatively well dealt with by the railgun, being taken out by any shots to their lower body with an 80% unsafe charge. A bit more difficult given these enemies are advancing at you and you have to take the time to get some charge in, but on the bright side, these tend to line up, allowing you to get some additional damage in via those penetration hits. Striders can be defeated with relative ease by the railgun, blasting through the plate, destroying the walker. Tanks and cannon turrets are an absolute yikes. It's going to run you 4 charge shots of around 80% to the heatsink, or a whole 9 shots to the top of the turret to bring them down via a 90% charge. Basically, don't do it. It's not worth it. How the mighty have fallen. Gunships. This matchup is rough. We have to lead shots while charging up the payload, which slows us down for the rocket-wielding flying stalkers. Generally, it's going to take you 3 shots to a thruster, firing on an 80% charge, but expect to use plenty more if you can't lock in those shots against this target, now featuring a buff from this patch to its evasive nature. Hulks are at least some more good news here. Besides anti-tank rockets and the queso cannon, the railgun is the only non-explosive weapon in the game capable of taking out a Hulk in just one safe mode shot to the eyes. Otherwise, you can rip the arms and legs off of the Hulk with well-placed overcharges, or destroy the heatsink on the back in just 2 shots. You can also break through the chest plate in 4 80% shots to take him down. The only issue here is they've removed the railgun's stagger, so expect the Hulk bruisers to return fire. Duck and cover, divers. Factory Striders. Bad news here, I'm afraid. The cannon and the body of this enemy is considered tank class, meaning the damage we deal is significantly lower than we would hope. It's a bit difficult to get proper tests against this enemy with the railgun simply due to the number of shots it was taking me, so let's leave it at only being an okay idea to use it when destroying the front guns or dumping your ammo supply into the stomach region, and that you should otherwise be using your stratagems or courageously advancing in the opposite direction from this monster. Alright, now that we've finished looking at the automatons, let's take a look at the Terminids, although we can keep this a bit brief as there's a lot of overlap here. Scavengers, hunters, warriors, hive guards all get dropped in one safe mode shot. They can be overpenetrated as well, causing kills in a line should you overcharge. This is basically not sustainable though, however, as we don't really have the ammo to be doing this. Brood commanders and biospewers are taken out in just one safe mode headshot. This is, to its credit, a very clean way to dispatch these enemies at least. Stalkers can be taken out in as little as one safe mode headshot, which is not terrible, but due to losing its stagger, this is a dangerous situation to miss shots in, as there will be no chance to reload and recharge the weapon after the first shot, more than likely, and you'll be dealing with multiple of these at a time, so this is unfortunately not a good target anymore. Shriekers are taken down in one shot, as you'd imagine, and unfortunately, their nest can be destroyed with the railgun. So I spent several minutes circling this nest, firing the railgun, and let's just say I had to resupply and move on. Chargers have not changed much. 3 charges of medium penetration can destroy them through either the head or leg, but gone are the days of 2 shots being sufficient, unfortunately. Bile Titans take just so many shots, and it's so much effort to charge up, and yeah, just forget this thing for bugs, man, it's just not worth it. That does it for the breakpoints. So, how good is the railgun after its would-be buff? Much the same, with very little actual change beyond feeling oddly worse in some cases due to the lost stagger potential. The railgun still sits, in my opinion, down at the bottom of the pile of support weapons. Unfortunately, ever since the addition of gunships and fabricator striders, it's lost its niche as a anti-armor option that could at least handle 2 out of the 3 big tanky threats for the automatons. Gone are the days of railgun domination, and they have certainly not come back here to even be up to par. The lack of ammo, the difficulty of use with explosive consequences, awful heavy breakpoints, lack of fabricator clear, and disturbingly bad optics leave this weapon in need of some serious buffs or reworks if I'm ever going to pick it up again, as this video felt like absolute suffering to record, in all honesty. Thank you for watching till the end, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. I'm going to bed.
And now, another helpful tip from General Brash.
Eravin has worked all through the day to bring us crucial information on just how badly the railgun needs to be brought up to speed by R&D, despite their latest modifications. For this, I am ordering all active Helldivers to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Failure to do so will result in your new helmet padding being revoked.
Brash tactics! Use them or die trying!